Hi everybody. So in the previous class we discussed the pteridophytes. So pteridophytes are the first terrestrial plants which have the vascular system. That vascular system consisting of xylem and phloem. So before the pteridophytes we studied bryophytes and algae. So in both algae and bryophytes you don't come across any the vascular systems like xylem and phloem. But now onwards, from the pteridophytes, there are separate tissues which need to transport food and xylem are starts develop. So that's the reason why pteridophytes are considered as the first terrestrial plants which have the vascular system. Okay, and since they have that vascular system, like there are of course two kinds of vascular system with respect to xylem over there, which transports water and of course xylem transport the water and phloem transport the food. So in xylem you have the two types of tube-like structures, okay, tracheids and vessels. So since tracheids are first observed in pteridophytes, these are also called as tracheophytes. Okay, so pteridophytes are tracheophytes. Tracheophytes means tracheids containing plants. Okay, so tracheids are the narrow ended pipe like structures. They are joined end to end like this. So ee riti pipe like structure form ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ which meant for transportation of water. So that's why they are called as tracheophytes. Okay, so this is one thing. And these pteridophytes, they reproduce sexually, okay, by producing the spores, okay, and the gametes, the fusion of gametes, and the embryo is going to develop. That embryo later develop into sporophyte. Here the main plant body, as we discussed in the last class, the main plant body of a pteridophyte is sporophyte. It is diploid. Okay, on the sporophyte itself, the leaves called as a specialized leaves called as sporophylls. That means a spore producing leaves. That spore producing leaves produces the spores in a specialized structure called sporangia. There is a leaf like structure. In that leaf we can see under the leaf, okay, we can find some sporangia. These sporangia produces the spores. Okay, that spores undergo germination. The spore undergo germination to produce the prothallus, a heart-shaped structure called a prothallus. On the prothallus, archegonia and antheridia were there. After fertilization, it develops into embryo, then into sporophyte. Like this, it going to develop. Okay. Now, this structure is gametophyte, and the main plant is sporophyte. Okay, from gametophyte, sporophyte is going to develop after fertilization. After fertilization, zygote is developed. The zygote is developed into embryo into new plant called embryophyte. Of course, we called it as embryophytes. So, like this, spore from the spore gametes are going to produce it on the gametophyte. Gametophyte from the sporophyte. Okay, so this happens in homosporous pteridophytes. In homosporous pteridophytes, it produces only one kind of spores in a sporophyll that undergo germinate to give the gametophyte. Gametophyte, antheridia and archegonia are going to develop. After fertilization, sporophyte is going to develop. That is the thing we discussed in the previous class. Okay, so this is about homosporous. But in case of heterosporous, the thing is slightly different. In heterosporous, in the last class itself, we discussed the difference between homosporous and heterosporous. So, homosporous produces one type of spore, whereas heterosporous produces two types of spores. Here, the one type of spore germinate to give one gametophyte. On the gametophyte, antheridia and archegonia produced, whereas in heterosporous it produces two types of spores. So two types of spores are one is very small, that's why it is called as microspore, and another one is megaspore. Since the spores can be differentiated into microspore and megaspore, the type of spore is heterosporous. Okay. So here microspore developed into male gametophyte. And megaspore developed into female gametophyte. But if you recall here it is the same kind of spore. That spore developed into gametophyte. Okay, we cannot differentiate the male and female gametophyte here in case of homosporous, but in case of heterosporous we can differentiate them into male gametophyte and female gametophyte. Okay, that is the difference between homosporous and heterosporous. Okay, so in the previous class we discussed in detail about the homosporous pteridophytes. So how homosporous pteridophytes produces the spore, how that spore germinate to produce prothallus or gametophyte, how that gametophyte undergo fertilization by producing antheridia and archegonia. After fertilization what happens, how the sporophyte is going to develop, and what is the nature of gametophyte. Gametophyte is very small and inconspicuous, and it is photosynthetic, independent. Like that we studied the structure and type of the gametophyte, or it is also called as prothallus. So today in this class let us discuss about the heterosporous. Okay, so how the heterosporous is entirely different from homosporous. Let's see. So the production of this heterosporous is a unique feature that leads to the development of stages like the seed. So in the next evolution, course of evolution, this heterosporous pteridophytes later evolved into gymnosperms. From the gymnosperms, angiosperms are evolved. So in the evolution point of view, it is very important. It is very important. Heterosporous pteridophytes. Okay. Yeah. So let's see the heterosporous pteridophytes. Heterosporous. So in heterosporous sporous pteridophytes, they produce compactly arranged sporophylls. Okay, if you recall what is a sporophyll? Sporophyll is, here it has two terms. Phylla means leaves, sporo means a spore producing leaf. Spore producing leaf is called as sporophyll. How the sporophyll is? So just before I wrote the structure of the leaf. If the pteridophyte leaf is like this, on this leaf you can find some structures. Below the leaf or under the leaf you can find this structure. So this structure is a group of sporangia, okay, so called sorus, or the sorus consisting of many sporangia. Okay, so itara mini sporangia irutte. Now the whole leaf is called as sporophyll. Okay, so ee tara sporophyll hegirutte andre, if you write let me write here. If it is a pteridophyte, that pteridophyte produces the leaf like this. Okay, so these are the leaf, and each leaf produces the spore underneath. ಇದು ಒಂದೊಂದು ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಕೆಳಗಡೆನು ಸಪೋಸ್ ಈ ಲೀಫ್ನ ನೀವು ಉಲ್ಟಾ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ಅಂಡರ್ ದ ಲೀಫ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಫೈಂಡ್ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್ ಲೈಕ್ ದಿಸ್. ನೋಡಿ, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಲೀಫ್ನಲ್ಲೂ ಈ ಥರದ ಲೀಫ್ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ, ಸಪೋಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ upper surface view, in the lower surface they have the structure like this. Okay, so these individual leaf is termed as a sporophyll. So ಒಂದೊಂದು leaf ಕೂಡ sporophyll. So this one is also sporophyll. This leaf is also sporophyll, and these are also sporophylls. So ಎಷ್ಟು ಲೀಫ್ಗಳಿರ್ತವೋ each leaf can be termed as sporophyll. So in case of homosporous pteridophytes, these sporangia produces only one kind of spores. Okay, but in case of heterosporous pteridophytes, they produces compactly arranged sporophyll called cone or strobili. ಓಕೆ, ಅಂದರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್ಗಳಿರುತ್ತೋ ಆಲ್ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಗ್ರೂಪ್ಡ್ ಟುಗೆದರ್ ಟು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಎ ಕಾಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್. Sorry, the compact arranged sporophyll is called as strobili. Just imagine, suppose this is a heterosporous pteridophyte. ಈಗ ಬರೆದಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು heterosporous pteridophyte ಅಂದರೆ all these sporophylls are compactly arranged. How they are arranged? Let's see. So these leaves, ಈ ಎರಡರ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಗ್ಯಾಪ್ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ವ, ಇದು ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಶಾರ್ಟ್. ಒನ್ ಟೂ ತ್ರೀ ಫೋರ್ ಫೈವ್ ಸಿಕ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೇನೆ. 1 2 3 4 5 6. So these are the 6 sporophylls. Again they are so these are all sporophylls. ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್ಸು, ದೇ ಆರ್ ಕಾಂಪ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಅರೇಂಜ್ಡ್. Okay, see that the same sporophylls are compactly arranged now. This further development into further compact structure. Okay, now so these are sporophylls, these are also sporophylls, these are also sporophylls. So like this, these leaf like sporophylls, so let me write beside big plant leaves. Okay, so many of these sporophylls, they are starts compacting together and ultimately they produces the structure like this. So ee tara compact agi ಒಂದು structure na produce ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. Okay, this compactly arranged structure is now called as cone or strobilus. ಈ ಥರ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಸ್ಟ್ರೊಬೈಲಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅಥವಾ ಕೋನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಹೋಪ್ ಯು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಹೌ ದ ಇನ್ ಹೆಟೆರೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ pteridophytes sporophylls are compactly arranged and produces the cone. So in heterosporous they produces the structure like this. That is important. Cone is going to produce there. Whereas in homosporous the structure is like this only. ಇದೇ ಥರ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್. Each sporophyll is very separate. They are not joined together. Whereas in case of heterosporous they are joined together. Of course the size is also get reduced little bit. ಈ ಥರ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗಿರೋಂಥದ್ದು ಲೀಫ್ ಸೈಜ್ ರೆಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. Then they are compactly arranged to form a cone. Okay, that is one more difference between homosporous and heterosporous pteridophytes. In homosporous pteridophytes there is no formation of the structure like cones. Instead in heterosporous pteridophytes the cone like structure is going to be produced. Okay, yeah, so hope you understand that structure now. Suppose if you take the longitudinal section of this one, ಈ longitudinal section ಇದರ ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ how it look like. So, in the last class itself, I told you the example of heterosporous pteridophytes, okay, like a Salaginella and a Salvinia, I told. Okay. Salaginella, Salvinia are example for heterosporous pteridophytes. Suppose this cone is going to take the longitudinal section. How it look like? Let me write a little bit larger. So it has the central axis. Okay. On the central axis, these leaf-like structures are there. Okay, so if you take a transverse section, a little bit larger. Okay, so like this. Andre, ee structure enide. So what the structure I wrote earlier, many sporophylls are grouped together anta bardide hige. Okay, so these sporophylls, they are grouped together to have a structure like this. So compact arrange agirutte. If you take a section, it look like this. And this structure actually represents that sporophyll. Idu sporophyll, ondondu sporophyll. Andre illide nodi. Ee tara leaf iruvantaddu, it become like this. That's the thing. Nodi ee tara normally bardiruvanta leaf ee tara agirutte. That is the structure. Okay. And each structure produces one small ligule. One leaf-like structure irutte. Very small structure. Adanna ligule anta karitivi. Okay. So here they produces one structure like this. Okay, so this is central axis. So this is the central axis. So this is the same central axis. The central axis on both the side of the axis, we can find these sporophylls. So these are all sporophylls. These sporophylls are compactly arranged to form a structure like this. This structure form ಮಾಡಿರುತ್ತೆ. Now these structure, let me write this structure as ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಂ. ಈ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ನ ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಂ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋಣ. ಈ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ನ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಂ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೇನೆ. ಓಕೆ, so in different species different numbers of megasporangium are there. In some species one side al poorthi megasporangium irutte, one side al poorthi microsporangium irutte. Then what is this megasporangium, what is this microsporangium? This megasporangium produces megaspore, and microsporangium produces microspores. Okay, ನೋಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ in heterosporous pteridophytes, two kinds of spores are produced. One is microspore and megaspore. Microspore and megaspores are produced in heterosporous. Where does they produced? Microspores are produced in a microsporangium. Okay, you know the meaning of sporangia. Okay, the meaning of sporangia. spore producing structure. ಸ್ಪೋರ್ನ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ನ ಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ ಅಂತೀವಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಅದೇ ಥರ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ನ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರು ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ ಅಥವಾ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಮ್. ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೋರ್ನ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರು ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ ಅಥವಾ ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಮ್. ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಸಿಂಗಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಮ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಪ್ಲೂರಲ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಇದರೊಳಗಡೆ ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್. ಇದರೊಳಗಡೆ Megasporangium consisting of megaspore. Okay, so ಈ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ ಒಳಗಡೆ okay, so let me label it. This megasporangium contains megaspore. Microsporangium contains microspores. Hope you understand the difference between that homosporous and heterosporous pteridophytes. In homosporous pteridophytes, you cannot differentiate. It's like a megaspore and it is like microspore. ಓಕೆ, ಎರಡನ್ನೂ ನಾವು ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಷಿಯೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದೇ ಥರ ಇರ್ತವೆ. That's the reason why they are called as homosporous. But here in heterosporous, two kinds of spores are distinctly produced. We call them as microspore and megaspore. Okay, so this is the condition. Then how did the gametes are going to produce? And of course, this megaspore is a gamete, microspore is a gamete. They represent the gametophytic stage. Okay, so ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಈ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಏನಿದೆ, ದಿಸ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್. This microspore developed into male gametophyte. This male gametophyte that carries male gamete. ಓಕೆ, ಇದು ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವುದು ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಡ್ ಇಂಟು ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್ ದಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೀಸ್ ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್. ಇದರೊಳಗಡೆ ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ನ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಅದೇ ಥರ ಈ ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಏನಿದೆ, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ megaspore. This megaspore carries the female gamete. It carries the female gamete. So gametophyte. So this is the female gamete, which is nothing but which contains egg. Okay, now you got the difference. Here male gametophyte and a female gametophyte, male and a female gametophyte are produced on the same plants itself. So idu plant, idu pteridophyte plant. Idu tip nalli cone irutte, base alli normal pteridophytic leaves irutte. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಟಿಪ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸಸ್ ದ ಕೋನ್. ಈ ಥರ ಕೋನ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ಮೇಲ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಬಾರ್ನ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ಕೋನ್ ಆರ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ದ ಮೇಲ್ ಗ್ಯಾಮೆಟ್ಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ಆರ್ ರಿಲೀಸ್ಡ್ ಹಿಯರ್, ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಆಗಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು, ದೇ ರೀಚ್ ದ ಎಗ್. ಓಕೆ, ರೀಚ್ ಆಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ದೇ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಫ್ಯೂಸ್ ಟುಗೆದರ್ ಟು ಫಾರ್ಮ್ zygote. Zygote develop into embryo. Now it develop into embryo. So here male gametophyte to reach the female gametophyte they need water. With the help of water they transferred here. Okay, so then one important thing you need to remember here is a very important point. So this is the sporophyte. So this is the main plant body, that is sporophyte, but here the female gametophyte, this is a female gametophyte before developed into the gamete. So let's say this is female gametophyte and it is haploid. Okay, so here female gametophyte depends on sporophyte. Really, this important point, female gametophyte depends on sporophyte for its nourishment. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋ ಫುಡ್ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಯೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಈ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟೇ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, because it developed on the sporophyte itself. Okay, female gametophyte retain on female gametophyte retained on sporophyte for variable period. Sporophyte ಮೇಲೆ ತುಂಬಾ ದಿನ ತನಕ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. that is the precursor for seed habit. ಅಂದರೆ ಸೀಡ್ ಥರ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರು ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದು ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಅಂತೇಳಿ. ಇಫ್ ಯು ರೀಕಾಲ್ ದ ಆಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ಸ್, ಅಂದರೆ ಈಗ ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಮತ್ತು ಫ್ರೂಟ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ನ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಫ್ಲವರಿಂದಲ್ಲಿ ಫ್ರೂಟ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಫ್ರೂಟ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಸೀಡ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ನೋಡಿ ಆ ಫ್ರೂಟು ಮತ್ತು ಸೀಡು ಯಾವುದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ? ಮೇನ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಇನ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ವೇ ಅದು ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಯಿತು ಅಂದರೆ ಈ ಎಟಿರೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ ಟೆರಿಡೋಫೈಟ್ಸ್ಗಳಿಂದ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ನೋಡಿ, ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಮೇನ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್. ಈಗ ಫ್ಲವರಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಅಂದ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಫ್ಲವರಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ನ ಲೀಫು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟು ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಕಂಪೇರ್ಡ್ ಟು ಫ್ಲವರ್. ಇದು ನಮ್ಮ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಏನು ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಇದೆಯೋ ಫ್ಲವರಿಗೆ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಈ ಹೋಲ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರು ಫ್ರೂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಫ್ರೂಟ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಸೀಡ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಕಂಪೇರ್ಡ್ ಟು ಸೀಡ್. ಅಂದರೆ ಸೀಡ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟು ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋ ನರಿಶ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂಡ ಈ ಮೇನ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟೇ ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಸೀಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್. It is the process of formation of a seed like structure begins from this heterosporous pteridophytes. If you recall the homosporous pteridophytes, this type of structure, ಅಂದರೆ gametophyte structure do not form on the sporophyte. There this spore which is produced in the sporophyll will fall off into the soil. In the soil it develop into prothallus. This is the gametophyte there. On the gametophyte antheridia and archegonia are produced, and this gametophyte is independent. Remember, homosporous gametophyte independent ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. It grows on the soil. ಇದು ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಗ್ರೋ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವುದು? gametophyte. This is the gametophyte in homosporous. ಹೋಮೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟು ಈ ಥರ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್. ಅದ್ರ ಯಾವುದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗಿರಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ಇನ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಹೆಟೆರೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್. ಇದು ಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್ ಆನ್ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್. ಬಟ್ ಇನ್ ಹೋಮೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್. ಇಟ್ ನೆವರ್ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್ಸು ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫೈಟ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಡಿಪೆಂಡ್ ಆಗುವಂಥ ಸ್ಟೇಜ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದು ಅಂದರೆ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಹೆಟೆರೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ ಟೆರಿಡೋಫೈಟ್ಸ್. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ವೇರ್ ಸೀಡ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ಡ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಈಗ ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಗೆಮೆಟೋಫೈಟಲ್ಲಿ ಎಗ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇದು ಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಇಟ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಇಂಟು ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎಂಬ್ರಿಯೋ ಥರ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ದಟ್ this structure is developed into seed like structure. ಇದು ಪೂರ್ತಿ ಸೀಡ್ ಥರ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಆಗಿ ಡೆವಲಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಇನ್ನು ಆಸ್ ವಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ಹೆಟೆರೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ pteridophytes, in heterosporous pteridophytes, gametophyte is depends on sporophyte. Gametophyte is depend on sporophyte, whereas in homosporous pteridophyte gametophyte is independent. So gametophyte independent irutte. Okay, so this is the major difference between heterosporous and homosporous pteridophytes. Okay, so seed like structure is going to produce in heterosporous, but there is no such type of structures are produced in homosporous pteridophytes. Okay, so these heterosporous pteridophytes are the precursor for seed habit. So that same seed habit continued with the gymnosperm. From gymnosperm the same thing is evolved into angiosperm. Okay, so in evolutionary point of view, these heterosporous pteridophytes play an important role. Okay, so this is about homosporous and heterosporous pteridophytes. Okay, then depending on the type of plant sporophytic structure they have, then sporophyll structure and that cone or strobilized structure, these pteridophytes can be classified further into Psilopsida, Lycopsida, Spinopsida and Pteropsida. Can be further classified into Psilopsida, Lycopsida, Spinopsida and Pteropsida. Let's see some example for them. Example for Psilopsida, it is Psilotum. Lycopsida, example Lycopodium and Selaginella. Then Spinopsida, example Equisetum. Then for Pteropsida, Pteris, Bryopteris, then Adiantum. This Adiantum is called as walking fern. ಇದನ್ನು ವಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಫರ್ನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅದು ವಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಫರ್ನ್ ಅಂತಾರೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟು ಈ ರೀತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಇಟ್ ಪ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸಸ್ ಒನ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್, ಇಟ್ ಗ್ರೋಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ದಿಸ್. ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಟಚ್ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ಇಲ್ಲೊಂದು ಹೊಸ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮತ್ತು ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಲೈಕ್ ದಿಸ್. ಇಟ್ ಶೋಸ್ ವಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತೇಳಿ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ದ ರೀಸನ್ ವೈ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ವಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಫರ್ನ್. ಓಕೆ, is there any uses of these pteridophytes? ಏನಾದರೂ ಯೂಸಸ್ ಇದೆಯಾ pteridophytes? Of course, pteridophytes have certain uses, like they are the important soil binders. They are soil binders that prevents soil erosion. Prevents soil erosion. Okay, soil erosion na avoid ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. Then have some medicinal values. Okay, medicinal values. They can be used in some medicinal preparations. Okay. Then these pteridophytes, ornamental, can be used as ornamental plants. Okay. Yeah, this is about the pteridophytes. Okay, yeah, thank you.